As of the published date of this episode, I am an associate of Ulta Beauty. The ideas and thoughts represented here are my own and not that of my employer.
Welcome to the Scaling Emerging Beauty Podcast, a podcast that provides tactical insights and practical growth tips as you look to scale your brand from 0 to 20 million. I am your host, Monique Benoit. I have experience in both buying products at major retailers in the US and selling those products into those retailers. In today's episode, I sit down with Dr. Tiina Meder, a dermatologist turned skincare founder, and boy, does she have an awesome story to tell. Here's a snippet from our conversation.
Okay, I have this formulation, olive oil, white wine, and a little bit of raspberry. Why not? A lot of antioxidants, probiotics. What can be better? But you cannot mix olive oil and white wine from the supermarket. So my first advice, find best cosmetic chemist team you can.
Let me tell you a little bit more about Dr. Meder. When she discovered and decided to use peptides and probiotics in skincare in 2007, talk about a trailblazing idea. Dr. Meder has since scaled Meder Beauty to be in over 35 countries, including the US. This episode is awesome because you can really hear Dr. Meder's background as a cosmetic chemistry safety expert and also someone who is a dermatologist. She has the consumer in mind first, and she used all of this knowledge to create Meder Beauty. I truly enjoyed getting to know Dr. Meder and think this episode will be helpful for any brand that is interested in scaling globally. We'll get right into the episode after a word from this episode's sponsor. I'd like to take a moment to thank the sponsor for the Scaling Emerging Beauty podcast, the Emerson Group. Through their support, we're able to continue to talk to industry experts to provide early stage brands with strategies and tactical insights on what they can do to help their business grow better. Thank you again to the Emerson Group for their continued support. And let's go ahead and continue with the show.
I am Dr. Tiina Meder, and I am dermatologist and cosmetic safety expert. That's my very first specialization in the beauty industry. So I am not treating eczema or psoriasis or any kind of dermatological condition. I am this kind of industrial dermatologist, specializing in the cosmetic safety expertise and in research and development of skincare and topical products. Actually, my first specialization after university was cardiology. I know it sounds surprising, but I was very young and, I was very inspired to be a real serious doctor. Actually, when I entered the university...
That's why you were in cardiology at first.
Yeah, and I entered into university when I was 15. I was the youngest student.
Very bright.
Yeah, I left house. I've been alone. It was really such an experience. And I dreamed to be anesthesiologist, reanimatologist. Because what can be more cool? Nothing. But when I got my diploma, I became a cardiologist. I loved cardiology very much, but dermatology was my second passion. And when I started in the cardiology, I was invited to take a part in the science team in the hospital. And my goal was to interview 70 women suffering from congenital heart diseases about how they feel after giving birth. So I was very motivated, and I supposed I was like 25, and I suppose they be very much concerned about their health because, it's life-threatening issue. They should be concerned about their babies and everything. So I thought, I'm well prepared. I wasn't prepared at all because 70 women have been concerned about their wrinkles, pigmentation, skin dryness, skin oiliness, acne, and cellulite. And they literally traded with me for interview. Like, give me some nice cream for oily skin and I will answer all your questions, because I was silly enough to say just, to warm the conversations. And I love dermatology. I even create creams myself. And so we traded, and for me it was such, a breakthrough moment, because I've been thinking that appearance means nothing. Yeah, I was this arrogant young woman. I was like, we are educated young women. We should not care about our appearance, acne, skin, cellulite. And suddenly I understood that, yes, we can do it. We can be concerned about our appearance. Why not? It is an important part of our life. And after I went to maternity leave myself with my first son, and when I left maternity leave, I switched to dermatology, and very soon I was invited to take a part in R&D work for creating some skincare in the collaboration with dermatologists, and I loved it so much. Then that was my way to the industry. And since that, I specialized in the cosmetic safety. I've been cosmetic safety expert. I worked with big brands like Talgo, laboratory in France, which is famous for professional skincare solutions. And also I've been head of international training in the big Swiss laboratory. But one day I launched my brand because honestly, I came with this idea to use peptides and probiotics in skincare. In 2007,
wow. You were trailblazing because
Absolutely.
folks weren't really talking about that in 2007. I know it's much more common now, but I mean, you shared a lot of your background, and it's so fascinating. You went from cardiologist to dermatologist to product developer and brand owner. So what motivated you to create your brand? It sounds like some of that happened after you yourself became a mother.
Yeah.
And then from there, you had this research. So tell us more about that and how that led you to, I know I want to create a skincare brand specifically.
Actually, it's been a combination of factors. Yes, I've got my son, and he's been growing up, and he's autistic and nonverbal. And after I've got a daughter with 16 years gap, and she's autistic and nonverbal as well. But both of them, they're sweet children. And obviously, it was the first thing because first, when I became pregnant, I was a doctor, and I felt like a professional, but everyone started to address to me like to mother, like, don't worry about anything. You should worry about your baby. And it's even more when people discover that your child has special needs. So many people don't see you like a professional, like a human being. You become just their mother.
One thing, even though you can be multiple things, you can be a mom and you can also be a doctor, all of the things. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I still feel that. And I still feel like our society is largely ignoring this problem because no one is asking fathers, right, about it. No one is surprised and the father has some kind of responsible work. But
true.
For mother, it's a different thing. But I started to build my career and I became this cosmetic safety expert and I still keep this mindset. And it was a combination of these factors because one day in 2007, I've seen these two absolutely new categories of ingredients, peptides and probiotics. And I thought, oh my God, both of them are revolutionary. Peptides are even more efficient than traditional ingredients. Like, honestly, you can do with peptides more than you can do with retinol because retinol is great, universal, but peptides are so much more subtle. And probiotics, they address the microbiome and all the science of microbiome just started. And both of them, they are absolutely safe. Much safer than everything we've had before. Safer than retinol, safer than acid, safer than hydroquinone, literally than everything. And I came with this idea to both big brands. I worked at this moment to Talgo and Cell Cosmet, Swiss laboratory. And I've been like, let's do it. Let's be first. And they've been very skeptical about it. Understandable. 2007. Like, leaving bacteria in the cream? Are you crazy? peptides.
That probably did sound crazy. It's wild to hear that now. Probiotics are everywhere now. But
Yeah.
it goes to show how relative things are. Like I talk about on the podcast a lot, how new is relative. What was new in 2007 is not necessarily going to be new in 2024 or
Absolutely, it is
2025.
mainstream. And in the same time, something which was called in 2007 like revolution just disappeared. No one heard about it. So human beings are probably not really good in prediction. But
Some are, but
Some
majority
are,
probably are not. I would agree with you.
yeah. Starting with Nostradamus, yes, but not every one of us. But I was absolutely sure that peptides and probiotics, it is the future of skincare. But both brands, they refused my idea. And I tried really to argument it. And I was like, let's create something for pregnant women. Because at least we can create some Botox-like anti-wrinkles treatment for pregnant women with peptides and probiotics. And in both brands, the most of people in the meetings, they've been male manager. And they've been like, oh, Tiina, it is a niche market. It is only 9 months. And I was like, only? Who can call the pregnancy only 9 months? The longest 9 months in the human history. And it's not only 9 months, it's much more. And I felt, so probably patronized. And I thought, okay, I cannot just accept it. And I came home and my husband, we discussed it and he told me, do it yourself. You're an expert, you work in the industry. So we sold our apartment. Probably say more about my husband than about me. But he believed in me. He was like, yes, you can do it. And we launched the brand in 2009, and it was really one product brand.
And what was your hero product then? What product did you launch with, and how was it received?
It was a professional set for wrinkles treatment for pregnant women based on peptides and probiotics. And despite everyone told me that I am absolutely crazy, I was like, let me try. Watch me. And we just launched I've got my clinic in France. I practice in France, but I am from north of Europe. I'm Estonian. I decided, and I got all connections because for years I've been training beauticians and educating beauticians and skin practitioners in more than 43 countries over the world with Talgo and Cell Cosmetics. That was absolutely great experience for someone who is ready to be open-minded. And I was like, let me try in Scandinavia. Why? Because Scandinavian countries are very feminist. So that should not be the problem to present something so, related to feministic values. I should not explain why pregnant women need an anti-wrinkle treatment in Sweden. It just, even in 2009, that was absolutely mainstream. So we started Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and unexpectedly it became a success. We sold more than hundreds of thousands sets in the first 3 years, reinvested everything. And now it is a real brand. We have 6 of professional treatments and 35 of home care products. And we expanded to more than 30 countries over the world. I'm not sure, 32 or 33 right now.
Wow. 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 So 2009, you started your brand with a single set of products addressing wrinkles, powered by peptides, targeting pregnant women. And now you have this global brand. So I'm curious, when you started the brand in 2009, did you recognize that this has the power to be a global brand? It sounds like you knew that you had a consumer out there who would want that product, but were you thinking, oh, this isn't just going to be here in Estonia, this isn't just going to be in Sweden, but this is going to be in France and Europe and the USA? Like, what were you thinking at that time? And I'm curious because there are compliance requirements when you are creating products across the globe. I mean, there are compliance products here, clearly here in the US, but when you then want to have a product that is going to be sold everywhere, you then have to make sure that you're meeting all those qualifications. So I'd love to get into your mind a little bit about that, how you manage that, and if you saw that vision.
Actually, I'm an incurably optimistic person.
Love that.
So I hoped it can be even, I didn't say global at this time but I hope then skincare therapists in many countries will be interested to incorporate it in their practice, because I worked with a lot of professionals and I really feel, okay, I want it for my clinics. So probably a lot of my colleagues will be interested too. But in the same time, I was ready to lose, because I've seen so many interesting ideas and brands who didn't survive. And I understand that, it's a great movie of Clint Eastwood, $1 Million Baby. Sometimes you can do everything, but you need to be a little bit lucky, at least a little bit, right? So I know then just if you miss this luck, you can lose. And I was ready to lose. But I will not say we won, but we expand to different countries. And it was a great advantage to have this experience to educate skincare professionals in more than 40 countries over the world and being cosmetic safety expert, because I was aware of regulations. I was aware of different mindsets and mentalities, because I spent a lot of time in Taiwan, Japan, Hong Kong, Eastern Europe, Scandinavia. So I went to this journey with largely open eyes. And since the very first moment, I was very careful about all ingredients, and they should be good to use for many countries over the world, because very often people are coming to the laboratory, to OEM laboratory by contract, and they're like, oh my God, my grandmother has this magic recipe. Just make it for me, make it real, 1,000 jars. And it's much more complicated when you speak about the industry. So when I found this peptide, I asked about the documentation. Is it okay by FDA? Chinese FDA, Taiwanese FDA, Australian FDA. And everyone was like, oh my God.
What foresight you had to think through that ahead of time. I'd like to back up to what you said, because I know that a lot of folks that listen to the podcast might have started with, to your point, that jar that they got from grandma or just from their own concoction. Is it much harder to take that formula that you've created at home and then to say, make this applicable across these different global countries? Or is it just as easy, let's say, if you start with that in mind? Or does it depend? I don't know if it's it depends on the formulation. Some things are easier or harder, but would love your thoughts on that based on your experience.
Is it absolutely possible? If you have a great idea, why not? Just you should be confident to professionals and to understand your limits, because the product is technically created by cosmetic chemists, not by dermatologists or by some woman with golden heart and best hands in the world. Me, as a dermatologist, I can create the draft of the formulation with my idea, as well as probably everyone else in the world can do it. Just you're coming and you're like, okay, I have this formulation, olive oil, white wine, and a little bit of raspberry. Why not? A lot of antioxidants, right?
Right.
Probiotics, biofermented grape, olive oil. What can be better? But you should understand that you cannot mix olive oil and white wine from the supermarket. You cannot mix raspberry yourself if you want to industrialize it. So don't expect from cosmetic chemists to go on the market for the best raspberry of the season. They are standardized ingredients, and that's an art to pick up the right ingredients, because, we have this name on the label, olive oil. But what kind of oil it is? It can be oil from Tuscany. It can be oil from France, from Greece. They be slightly different. The price will be different. Stability can be different. How you combine them with another ingredient. So cosmetic chemists, it's a very, very high-tech job. So my first advice, find best cosmetic chemist team you can. And I was lucky again because I was invited as a cosmetic safety expert to work with different laboratory. I worked as a freelancer with one of the Swiss laboratory specializing in this OEM production. And when I had this idea to produce something by myself, I went to them and they accepted it, despite it sounded crazy. And we just collaborated together. And I still with them since 2007. We still produce in the same laboratory. They became much bigger this time, like us.
Wow, they grew with you. That's another thing that one of my past guests had mentioned, like, it's nice to partner with a lab that you know has the capacity to grow. If you know you want to grow to be global, if you know that you want to grow to scale for distribution broadly across the US, choosing a manufacturer that can grow with you can be helpful.
It's a limitation, the volume, because you start when you produce probably with sometimes some active products. It can be like 10 kilo, your first order. It will be very small and very expensive when it is small. But one day you can grow until to order 1,000 of kilo in the same time. And that's a question. If your laboratory is able to produce 1,000 of kilo with the same quality they produced 10 kilos. That's a different equipment, that's a different production, absolutely different process.
So we're talking about the labs and product development. Does that process look different since you are a global brand? Is it different from the packaging standpoint because you need packaging in English for this subset of countries? You need it in French for this subset of countries? I'd love to understand how you adapt those products that you sell to the different local markets and what some of the adjustments that you might make across those regions.
That's such a great question. And I'm surprised why I've never been asked this question before. I literally waited all my life for 15 years to be asked this question.
Well, here I am,
Yes,
Dr. Meder. Here I am.
Because, you know, everything is changing with every country you add to your distribution network. Because each country has mindset which is completely different mentality. Consumers will be different. And yes, we are all looking for the same thing. Like no one is saying, I want some treatment to get older, right? Doesn't exist. But it will be different. And when I started, I worked in France for many years and I traveled around the world and I noticed how difficult it is for skincare practitioners in non-English speaking country over the world to read labels. Because like all our market, and our market is very much Europe-centered or US-centered. So supposedly everyone should speak English, right? So the idea like best hydrating cream of the year sounds great. Second option, French, even worse. Honestly, no one speaks French except for France, Belgium, part of Canada, and a few African countries.
But it's very specific.
Right?
So then can you put both on there? And then I also know sometimes what you might say in English might not necessarily directly translate over.
Not
right?
at all. And being a French dermatologist, I actually named my first professional set of treatment anti-rides traitement pour les femmes enceintes. The name was long. Like,
that sounds long. I don't know what you said, but
it was such a wrong naming. Absolutely, no one understood it. In Sweden, they've been just kind enough to not say it to the right place. Oh my God, that's stupid.
I said we like the goop in the bottle. We don't know what it says, but we like the goop in the bottle.
But what was a good idea from the very beginning, I used the abbreviature. So I just created this two-part name based on the medical terminology, because I suppose in skincare industry, everyone should understand the roots like derm or net or fix or meal, like muscles. So I use these two-part names with abbreviature. So anti-wrinkle cream, I called it MyoFix, Myo for muscles, because, like myasthenia, and fix because we fix them, not paralyze, but relax them.
It's one of those words that will translate across multiple
Yeah,
countries, even
I
though
hope,
it's,
and it is.
yeah, no, that makes sense. I watch some shows, like when I watch my Netflix, I'll sometimes watch shows from other countries, but then I like to hear them talk and I just read the subtitles.
Yeah.
But sometimes they will say words that are English words. And I'm like, oh, there's not like, a different way for them to say that. So that makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's right. And also we are using abbreviature. So MyoFix, it's like MF.
Okay.
And we have the numbers of categories. So cleansers are number 1, serums are
Make
number
it really
3.
simple.
So it makes things easier. Actually, when I worked in big laboratory, everyone told me, oh, Tiina, you simplify things too much. Now I simplify things as much as I can.
I think that the consumer likes simplification. I don't know many consumers that would say, give me something complex. That sounds like something that like an academic would say. But I think that when you're talking about consumers, people who want to buy something, give me something that works and something that's simple.
It's so funny because I've heard so many times from marketing people, and I'm not right. They've been like, no, you should not use these short names and it doesn't really understand. You should use the word best, moisturizing, blah, 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 to give names and everyone can read. And I was like, that's not everyone on the planet Earth can read it first. And also what is important about the naming, you should think about Google. Because try to Google best moisturizer. You will get hundreds of thousands of best moisturizers. If you Google MyoFix cream, you will get one. And it will be our. Because it is an original name. Yes, it is not a real word, but it still can be easily Googled and easily memorized by people with different language background. So it was intuitive, but it was a lucky choice, I can say. Wow. But after we rebranded the brand, because brand was Meder Beauty Science, and I thought it is a great idea. Meder is my family name, with med like medicine, der like a dermatology.
Oh, lots of tie-ins.
Yeah, I am lucky. And beauty because it's still cosmetic product, science because it's scientifically backed, and I am always using scientifically backed ingredient. And once again, big mistake. No one called it by the full name. Everyone called it Meder, so we just shortened it in 10 years to Meder because it was just, useless.
Because, again, the consumer wants a simple solution, and it's like, that's the first thing that they remember. So let's talk a little bit more about the consumer and talk about markets. I talk a lot about how consumers are very specific, and the way that you might talk to one consumer might be different. If you have an older consumer, their needs might be different than if you're also pitching to a younger consumer, especially if the products are, solving different needs. So how do you market to this global audience? And I'm curious, if you have a new product launch, do you launch the new product and then you have campaigns that are specific to the market? I know some of the bigger CPGs do things like that. And then how do you also staff your team to support marketing plans? Are you hiring folks locally so that you can make sure that you have the right sound and feel if you are talking to an American audience versus a European audience? Would love to understand how you support your business in that way.
Actually, it is one of the most difficult questions. And we are still independent and family-owned brand, so we are not big. So that's, not such things like big teams, and we can hire a team of 10 people for each launch. We are still this company with very horizontal style so no hierarchy at all. We are all equal, and we are just a lot of brainstorming, and everyone is, if needed, everyone is helping each other. So it's a little bit messy, most of the time, but it is very fun. And when we launch the new product, we are all together because there are a lot of people with different backgrounds in our company. And probably half of the people, they are working in different countries over the world. So we're just discussing it all together. And, when you have in one room people with Peruvian background, American background, Romanian, Ukrainian, Estonian, Azerbaijani, and whatever country over the world you can find, it is always something new you can learn. And for me, in these 15 years, I understood that one of the most important things is a kind of demography and psychology in the country. Because working in the skincare, we have different category of products. And demographically, they perform very differently. Acne treatment, obviously, they perform better in the young generation of consumers because they are menopausal acne, but it's not too much of consumers suffering from menopausal acne, fortunately.
Right.
But when we speak about wrinkles, that's another demography. And in different countries, it's absolutely different approach because the statistic, when people start to notice their first wrinkles, and actually what is funny, it's corresponding when women start to use word certain age about themselves. Can you imagine? There's a lot of research about it. And it's a like of markers and indicators. Then women in this age start to feel older and care about these changes, would like to fight these changes. And in different countries, very different. For example, in Eastern Europe, women start to use this wording certain age. I am the woman of certain age in their 30s. In America, that will be about 50s. So that's a huge difference. So Eastern European women start to buy anti-wrinkles product 20 years earlier than American women. Scandinavian women will be even later. They're most actively consuming anti-wrinkles product, approaching their 60s. Wow. Can you imagine?
I mean, I'm wondering if they're also if the culture there is allowing them to also look less wrinkly too, because I've read up on some really positive things about Scandinavian culture. So I do wonder if that has something to do with it too.
First of all, the culture is different, but also we have no sun, believe me.
Oh, and the sun, you know what? I didn't even think about that. There's so little sun that likely impacts your skin and how it responds, especially for those lacking melanin, because I feel like, in other countries, like I still wear sunscreen, but I find that wrinkles don't seem to be a big problem for me. But it's more hyperpigmentation, discoloration, things like that. But my friends, I have friends that are my age, but spend a lot more time in the sun, a lot less melanin. And you can see they look significantly older. And I'm like, what happened? How?
Actually, melanin, it is such a natural protection for the skin. So more of melanin you have, better your skin is protected from free radicals altogether, not only against the ultraviolet, because melanin is one of the most powerful antioxidants we have in our body. So it doesn't mean the sun is not damaging skin with a higher amount of melanin, but it means an aging process will be different and skin concerns will be very different. So we should address different skin concerns in different skin types, in different consumers group, demographically, ethnically, behaviorally.
So interesting.
Because, for example, we started with this relatively small group, right? We've been thinking about
pregnant women.
Yeah, pregnant women, that's it. And we discovered that the whole new world, they are not only pregnant women, they are looking for toxin-free wrinkles treatment or wrinkles prevention. So it can be even better than you suppose on the first stage. But it is a good idea to think about your consumers before you launch the product. And when you launch the product, you should understand that in some countries this product could not perform as well as in other countries. For example, in Vietnam, we have had this distributor in Vietnam. And I am always, second part of your question, how we localize products. And actually, we are not, because I'm very confident to distributors companies there. Because I believe, I lived in 4 countries myself. And I know how different it is and how people from bigger country are ignoring the specific new country. Very often, people from bigger and richer countries are coming to the country and they're like, oh my God, the food is here. Where is my traditional food? Where is hamburger? And we're like, we don't have it. We have another food and we love it. And same about skincare. And so when we find a distributor or distributor finds us, I try always visit the company to see the country, and we give them the freedom to localize product, to localize message, even to localize image, because it can be very different, Denmark and Australia.
And you want it to resonate with that consumer.
Yeah.
And that's how you tap in to say, hey, we aren't familiar with the Vietnam region. So let's hire an expert distributor who is familiar so that they can take this global brand and then help us to distribute it.
Yeah, that's their job, and I'm very confident in them. And we are not corporate, which can be because corporates, they react so painfully for each minor changes in the picture. Like,
yeah,
this message should be unchanged in all countries over the world. And I'm like, I am not a real marketing person. I created this message just discussing with our team of 25 people from different countries. Maybe we are not right. If you think that this message can be changed in your country for something better, why not? It's your country.
Why not? Why not? Wow, that's so interesting. So as you expand to other countries, you're not necessarily looking for consistency in the messaging. It sounds like you might tweak that message based on the needs of that market. Do you find that there is something that keeps the brand together? Like, is there that silver lining or that one string that's like, this is true of Meta products across the globe? Is it that they're effective and they're non-toxic and that's something that you always speak to? Or is it that your product formulation is consistent, but you really do vary up the marketing depending on the market and the consumer?
And we have our core values, which never changed since the very beginning. For example, all of our products are pregnancy safe. Because I believe if something is not safe enough to be applied on the skin of the pregnant women, we should not apply it on the skin at all, at least for aesthetic purposes. It's not like life and death question to get rid of wrinkles. We should not risk our health. And I don't like this idea like pregnant women are more valuable than non-pregnant women. So it is not true. All of us are valuable. And so all of our products are pregnancy safe. And I know that in each country, our distributors are speaking proudly about it because everyone shares the same values. That's why they became our distributors, because they just like the idea. Also, we don't use any kind or any potentially harmful ingredients. And we didn't use hydroquinone before it was banned. We didn't use retinoic acid before it was banned in Europe. And we base our formulation on peptides and plant extracts and mushroom extract. I love mushrooms. And algae and plant stem cells. And I love traditional medicine, actually. Since the very beginning, when I was very young, I was so mesmerized by the idea of folk medicine because if you think about it, it looks absolutely magical. And people 10,000 years ago, they found some flower and they've been like, oh, it is good to treat eye infections. How they knew about it? How it is possible that this flower, actually, that's a real flower. In English, it's called eyebright. And it's known by the name including eyes in more than 20 countries over the world independently. And scientifically, it's proven to be good to treat specifically eye infection. How it was possible? How in China they found traditional recipe at least 6,000 years ago,
Right.
including hormone-like treatment for menopausal women. How in Norway they found some kind of local amla in mushrooms to treat pain. And for me, it's such a mesmerizing story. So we are using a lot of plant extracts used by traditional medicine everywhere around the world. Traditional Chinese medicine, African medicine, we are using Cardiology africana, which is very, very much known in Africa. And we are using shea butter. We are using some European plants extract used for healing, like chamomile, centella from Madagascar, and from East Asian medicine, and noni plants themselves. So for me it is, and I think our distributors, they share some values. So they love to speak about plants and peptides and all the combination of, Mother Nature's treasures with modern biotechnology. So I think it comes naturally, and our message is pretty much consistent around the world because we all speak about science, we all speak about the microbiome, we all speak about traditional medicine and safety for pregnant women and safety for different skin types. So
But
I
you
think
have
we're
these
just,
tweaks that you make by region, but you have these overarching themes, these overarching values that are true to your brand. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, just, we are looking for like-minded people and they find us themselves as well. And our consumers, very probably, they are like-minded community of people who, because that's not for everyone, is important, the safety of the product. Recently, we've been discussed about the Botox, and I never injected Botox myself. I never done Botox myself in my face.
You look fabulous.
Oh, thank you. It was actually why I never did it from the very beginning. I took part in one of the first workshops on Botox in the beginning of 2000s. And I was very excited because Botox was used in neurology and ophthalmology and, oh my God, eliminating wrinkles. Hello, give me two. And I left the workshop and I refused to get injections by my colleague. And I can tell you, people looked at me like, oh my God, she's difficult. But my son, he was about, I think, 5 at this time, and he's nonverbal and autistic. And when we discussed it, the trainer, she's been speaking about, we paralyze your mimic. You will not show how unhappy you are. You will look careless. You will look happy. And I was like, I don't want to look happy. I communicate with my face. 80% of communication is nonverbal. I want to be
so you
able.
lose that muscle control because you're feeling so much.
Because for my son, it is important that I can show to him that I am not very happy. Okay, with peptides, it's diminished. Skin is relaxed. But it's still, I can show my emotions. I cannot risk to have poker face. But we've been discussing now, there are a lot of research about how Botox can affect empathy, because in 20 years they've been discovered that it really affects the brain function. So people after regular, oh my God, news. Sorry for breaking
I did not
news.
know that is news to me. I mean, I haven't considered Botox myself because, as I shared earlier, I have a naturally round face, so there's not much that needs to be filled. I feel like my face already naturally fills things out on its own. But I didn't know that there were articles out about that. Wow.
That's actually kind of very active discussion in the scientific community, which starts to appear in media as well, because it was found that regular Botox injections, they're affecting the brain function. First of all, the ability to recognize emotions. So you still can recognize strong emotions, but your ability to recognize mild emotions is affected by Botox. And another thing is empathy. So you feel less empathy because of facial feedback, which affects the brain function. And even sexual pleasure is affected by regular injections, because as it's been found, then face expression and forehead's mimic activity is very much linked to the female sexual pleasure, paradoxically.
What?
Yeah. I can send you
Wow.
articles. It's really
Send me.
fascinating.
Oh my gosh, that's so fascinating.
It's absolutely fascinating. But I've been speaking about it with one of my friends, and she was like, who cares? Empathy, sex. If I don't have wrinkles, I'm happy. And
You know
I was
what?
like,
For some folks, it is really about how they look, and I
Yeah.
can't knock it. You know, I say to each their own, but I do think it is good to be empowered to have the knowledge so that you can make a thoughtful choice about that, whether you choose to move forward and use Botox or alternatively you choose a topical product that can help you, you know, to slow down that wrinkling or whatever
or
works
you
for you.
choose do nothing. It's okay. Why
Right.
not? It's your priority.
It's your
So
choice.
I
It's your
think-
choice, however you
Yeah,
decide
and
to do things.
It's important to understand probably for brand founder, then you can please everyone. You are looking for like-minded people who care about same things. So probably Meder is looking for consumers who care about, safety during pregnancy, who cares about environment, who is probably cares a bit less about the wrinkles or age-related changes, because some people they're okay, they accept aging. I am one of
Yeah.
these people. I honestly I think we are lucky to be able to age.
It's about perspective in some cases,
Yeah.
right? It's like these gray hairs are showing that I have wisdom, and I'm learning to get there as I'm starting to visibly see the signs of aging. It is weird, I must say.
Oh my
But,
God! In beauty industry, I am still only one gray-haired woman in the room. Believe me.
I believe it. You know what, though, Dr. Meder? There's a really big difference when you have your hair fully colored. I mean, I do think for some women, and I don't know, maybe men too, because I know that some men color their hair also. I do think it can shave like 10 years off of you.
Yeah,
It can.
absolutely. And actually, I dyed my hair for years because I have gray hair since I'm 30.
Oh, wow. You
Yeah,
grayed
and
early.
And I dyed my hairs in every color of the rainbow. I love this. My last color before COVID was dark blue, believe me or
Ooh,
not.
that's fun.
What is
You have such a beautiful gradient for your hair color, though.
Yeah,
I know
but-
for those on the podcast, you can't see it, but it's kind of like an ombre. You have some darker gray, then you have a little bit of the white gray. It's very pretty.
Oh, thank you. Actually, I hope to get gray from my mother's side because they have this platinum gray. But I have this gray from my father's side, which is a little bit mixed. But in the beauty industry, it was very, very difficult to go gray. And I did it only because of COVID.
Oh, because you couldn't go get your hair dyed.
Yeah, because when they grow and I've got these all colors of hair, and really people say you kind of unpleasant things. Oh, you should dye your hair. You see, you have white hair, your gray hair are growing up. And I really think probably I should shave my hair and let them grow normally. I don't know how to do it differently because I travel, I educate people. And when you have dyed hair, a little bit grow it, you look strange. And finally, that was COVID. And I didn't see my hairstylist for 6 months. And when we met, I was like, oh my God, cut my hair. And I went gray. But it is not for everyone, because actually when people say, oh my God, it's so great to be gray, it's not so great. Because first of all, in my school, parents from my daughter class, for first 2 weeks, no one recognized me. No one. Can you imagine? And finally they've been like, oh, Tiina, something happened. So many people tell you, oh my God, you're so bold to go gray. I was bold to go red.
I guess it's all relative. Oh my goodness.
But silver lining, that you are invisible and every kind of security control in the airport. Gray-haired woman cannot do any wrong.
Good to know.
Yeah.
You say it has its benefits. Well, look, I know we're coming up on time. This has been such a fascinating conversation for me. I'd love to just close and ask you to share either a key learning from your journey or advice that you would give to early stage brands that are looking to scale their businesses.
It's difficult to say what is, because you learn every day in the business, right? Because sometimes things happen you never suppose it can happen. And I think that first of all, you should train yourself to accept the reality. Nothing will be perfect. It's my key learning. Because when you start, you think that if production is planned for 3rd of December, it will be done on 3rd of December. No, forget about it. If it will be done on 3rd of December, you're a lucky person. It will not repeat next year. Everything will go out of plans all the time. And second thing, that's probably it's my key learning, then you should be confident. You should listen to people. You should listen to experts. But you should keep your idea. You should stand for your ideas. Because there will be a lot of people, especially in the early stage, who will say you that you are not right. You don't know. Then expert knows better. You should not use this red color for your packaging. Or you should not use this font or this name or this ingredient. If you choose this color, you have your reason. And if there are reasons important for you, stand for your color. Only you know what it means. And you will find like-minded people who will love your color. Just I don't think that's probably the best advice I can give them. Don't do things just because other people think that they're right. If you don't feel for this color, don't be too confident in statistics and blue products are selling better than yellow products or red products. So
good.
You should listen, but you should learn to be strong and to believe in yourself.
It's a balance. It's the yin and yang. And that is so critical for founders. Dr. Meder, I had such a great time talking to you today. I feel like I could have talked to you for at least another 30 minutes to an hour. But
I'm always ready to come if you need me.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll make sure that we include all of the links to your following so folks can follow you on Instagram, all of your socials. That's going to be in our show notes. But I do just want to thank you for imparting your knowledge, your energy, your spirit. I feel like I could feel it here on the call today. Really enjoyed everything that you had to share and just your knowledge of things. And I think the folks that are listening are going to also glean a lot from it. So thank you.
Thank you so much again for inviting me. I really enjoyed every second. Thank you.
Thank you to Dr. Meder for joining us on the show. I always love hearing how our varying backgrounds end up leading us to exactly the place that we're meant to be. You could hear from today's episode how Dr. Meder's background in research, in dermatology, and being a safety expert helped her to build and scale her global brand. Thank you again for joining me on the show. And thank you for listening. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcasts, go ahead and leave the podcast a review. It ensures that other people find the show. And if you're watching me on YouTube, thank you for being here. Go ahead and give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss an episode. As always, thank you again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.